Hello and happy Tuesday to everyone. Also a day after Martin Luther King Monday. We are here, my point is, with both me, Larry Bryant, and
Candace Montague. Hey everybody, Happy New Year.
And just to jump right into it, to join us with our topic this month, and I promise you we're going to try to do these. We're keeping up a good pace, I think, like 2 months. Wow, that's like a world record already.
It's a record for us. It's a big record for us. We should be celebrating.
Well, I am. I already showed you earlier. But our topic today is Black women's and gender equality in 2017. A timely topic for a variety of reasons, and not just because of what's coming Friday, but for a variety of reasons and how we can work forward to realizing what that means, how to put it in action, who's involved, who's impacted, etc. To join us for this incredible discussion, we have Angelique Roche, Vice President, External Affairs at Miss Foundation for Women. Hello, Angelique.
Hi.
And later, we hope that Angela Green, who is Director of Operations at AIDS Project East Bay, will join us. We had Kellee Terrell from Hello Beautiful schedule. She was unable to make it because of a personal issue, but she's with us in spirit. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Candace, who will kind of steer the show.
Well, hey everybody, again, thank you for joining us. If you're joining us online, on your phone, at the computer at home, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us. So I'll get into it. And my first thought was about just Black feminism in general. Like, I'm always reluctant to call myself a feminist because I haven't quite figured out what the true definition of it is. And how is it separate from white feminism? Or is it one and the same? We're just calling it something different. So Angelique, I guess my question to you would be, how do you define Black feminism, or how do you define feminism? And then how do you define Black feminism?
So it's an interesting question. And ironically, it's a question that I asked myself when I started working for the Ms. Foundation about 2 years ago. I did not call myself a feminist before I worked for the Ms. Foundation for various reasons, including the fact that I was born in Louisiana. I came from a family where a lot of the women were already very strong. My sister's a doctor. My other sister works for the government. My mom always believed you could be whatever you want to be. And I went to an all-girls school where all the leaders were women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't a word that was used, particularly by women of color in the South. And one of the things that I did when I first came on board is I asked a lot of women of color, do they believe they're feminists? What is their thoughts? And I heard anything from, I'm a Black feminist, I'm a womanist, I'm a humanist, I'm a third world feminist, I'm a third wave. I don't identify with any of them. And the great thing about the Ms. Foundation is when I started here, I was actually tasked with creating the conversation about what does a feminist look like. Mm-hmm. And in 2015, we created a 3-day interview process where we brought in 42 people between the ages of 18 and 81. Mm-hmm. And men, women, trans men, gender nonconforming, Latina, and we asked them, what does your feminism look like? What does feminism mean to you? To paint the picture and have the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, we're working on a definition of feminism that is the social, political, and economic equality of all genders. And if we get so hung up on the fact, do you call yourself a feminist? Do you not call yourself a feminist? And we don't really look at the core of what feminism really is, we get lost in labels, right?
Right.
Particularly when you look back and you have women like Gloria Steinem expressly saying, I learned feminism from Black women. When you have people like Gloria Steinem and her comrades saying, the suffragists really learned about the patriarchy from looking at the equality that Native American tribes had and how women were able to function outside the home and were inspired by that equality to fight for their rights. And so I think we've gotten lost in this conversation because there is an image that has been portrayed that feminism, and one of our interviewees said it very well, Aisha Moody Mills, who is the president and CEO of the Victory Fund, said, I never considered myself a feminist. I thought that was for middle-class white women. And that's the image that has been portrayed. But the truth is, women like Audre Lorde, women like Dorothy Pittman Hughes, those women who were there, people, and even going back to before feminism was feminism, Ida B. Wells, women of color have been at the center of every single movement. And so there would not be feminism if it were not for women of color, in particular, Black women.
Exactly.
So to not see ourselves in the movement that we helped create, you know, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? That's like saying, so we're gonna stop making music because we don't really see ourselves in country, even though the roots of country come from R&B. It comes from spiritual. It comes from drum lines that were taken from the culture that was brought over by Black people.
And see, for me, I definitely see the roots of feminism coming from Black women. I mean, we always set the tone. We always set the pace. We always, you know, like start the trend, so to speak, and get very little credit for it in return. But we don't seem to, I don't know, I don't hear many Black women owning that title of being a feminist. We just know that we do what we do and we handle our business. That's it. We don't try to give it a label or a title or anything. So that's why when that question is posed to me, like, are you a feminist? And I'm thinking, like, I don't really know what a feminist is. I just know that I know how to handle my business. That's it.
And that's why we really ask the question, do you believe in the social, political, and economic equality of all genders? If so, let's come to the table. Let's get some work done.
Let's do some work done. And so I was thinking about that women's march that's coming up, you know, coming up on Friday here, and the protests and everything. I kind of feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of feel like the white feminists are trying to add us to this march to make numbers, to make it seem more like, look, there's a big, powerful voice. But I think under the surface, they're not really fighting for specifically what Black women need. They're just trying to make their voice heard. And the more numbers you get, the louder you are. That's the feeling I get from it. And that's why I don't plan on joining that march. I don't plan on doing anything. I'm not going to talk against it necessarily because it's, you know, you have a right to protest. But to me, I don't see where I belong in that march. I just kind of feel like this is kind of not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction, but probably just a reaction like we just want to make sure that you know that women are very insulted. Not that I'm not insulted, and I believe in what they're saying, but I just don't feel like they're really like out for me. They just want my voice to make themselves sound and look better.
So I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, I want to just, Candace brought up the march that's happening on the 20th, but then I was going to follow because I thought you were going to mention the march that's actually the day after, the one where I posted the article from the Post, the Women's March on Washington, opens contentious dialogues about race.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so there's two marches?
So there's several marches. So that you know, over 20 organizations have asked for permits in DC next weekend between Friday and Sunday. There are marches on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I think the one you're actually alluding to is the Women's March. And so I will say you're right and you're wrong. And I won't even say you're wrong. I think I say the perception is very different than the reality. Okay. And so initially, that is exactly what the march was. A woman woke up the morning after election and she put a Facebook post up and she did not realize that it was going to spiral into the size that it spiraled into. And so people started becoming part of the host committee. And yes, at the beginning, it was primarily white women. but 3 very strong women of color have come in and now have multiplied into 6, 10, 15, 16 diverse women, including Tamika Mallory. You've got Rosie Perez, who is the voice of the march instructions. You've got Paola and Carmen and these amazing women of color who have stepped in and actually created a diverse, open agenda that has stated this is what we're fighting for. We are fighting for marginalized communities. We are making sure there are translators. We are ensuring that this is coming together and that we're not doing organization over organization. This is about women. This is about men and women coming together and marching for equality. This is about immigration. This is about women's rights to own their body. This is about police violence. And they've really gone through, and I really urge anyone who's listening, and it's available on their website, to look at the actual agenda, because they're setting the tone for what does it mean to be inclusive? What does it mean for you to really have an intersectional approach? Because they understood at the end of the day, you could not have change without looking at the issues in an intersectional manner, without looking at education and the environment and the way police are treating people of color and what the immigration policies are and a pathway to citizenship and looking at health access. And so, yeah, in the beginning, right after the march, it was definitely a different issue. And I think one of the things that really in the beginning was really tough is that when you have a grassroots movement that grows so fast, so quickly, there is a narrative. And it is hard to get in front of it because as people are excited and they want to do something, but these women have done an incredible job finding ways to get buses there, getting people registered, getting organizations together. They have over 131 organizational partners, from the Black Women's Roundtable to Moms Rising, who are all coming together to push this out, to the National Latina Institute of Reproductive Health and Urge for Reproductive Rights, which is a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-gendered reproductive health organization out in DC, well, nationwide, but they're headquartered in DC. And so I hear you. I think that was the biggest complaint with the march, but the work that's been done by the women of color really should be applauded, because they raised this money from scratch in less than 2 months. And it's really incredible. But they've also ensured that they have pushed people to go to statewide marches, because they understand when people leave the next day, they've got to go home. And there's work to be done on the ground. And so even the Ms. Foundation is investing in an organizer training that's going to be the next day, where we have 2,000 women already confirmed to come in to take away skills back to where they came from, to ensure that they are not just coming and marching, but first we march and then we organize, right? And that's the impact that you just mentioned about women of color. Yeah. That's that influence. That's that backbone. That's that getting that work done.
Let me read to you a quote from Bell Hooks here. She says, "We could only become sisters in struggle by confronting the ways women, through sex, class, and race, dominated and exploited other women and created a political platform that would address these differences." What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's interesting. And I'll actually use a really good example that I just wrote about, which is Hidden Figures. I don't know if you've seen the movie. You should, and I'm about to give you a spoiler. I'm really sorry.
Oh, that's cool.
So Octavia Butler. Lord, I'm thinking about one of my favorite writers. Octavia Butler's character in the movie, who is Dorothy Vaughan, who's a supervisor at, trying to be a supervisor at NASA, but became a supervisor at NASA, had a very contentious relationship with Kirsten Dunst's character, who was her supervisor, where continuously she was trying to get promoted for a job that she was doing. But Kirsten Dunst's character kept saying, well, that's the way things are. And you can tell there was this power struggle that was happening. And at a point, Octavia eventually gets her promotion. And Kirsten said, well, it was never really personal. And she goes, well, you know what? I truly believe you think that it wasn't. And And I think it's one of the very few moments, and I talked about this in my review of the movie. It's one of the very few moments where we looked at not just white and black, but we really looked at the power struggle dynamic of two oppressed communities and how that oppressed community plays oppression Olympics and then further oppresses the most marginalized community. And those are conversations that need to be heard and they need to happen. And I think the opportunity of having a Trump president gives us an opportunity to fully digest those conversations, particularly with the fact that 50% of white women voted for Donald Trump.
50%.
And that's something, that's a fact, that's a number, that's, you know, it's not 50% of the population of white women, it's 50% of the white women who voted, but that's a really large number. And it also makes us realize that there are more conversations that need to be had and more conversations that need to be started. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity out of crisis, a crisis I would have liked to have avoided, but a crisis.
There you go. I'm thinking now beyond the march too, like when it's all over, when everybody goes home, what would a black woman have to do to become more of a feminist now? We've been seeing the issues for decades, so we know what the problem is. Now the question becomes, how do we work together to solve these issues? A lot of times black women have a tendency to have some tension between us, and we can't get through those tensions enough to get past the struggle that's really the bigger struggle in front of us. So how are we going to get past this and try to get together and be more active in promoting ourselves and taking care of ourselves and protecting our own rights?
I think one of the key things that has to happen is information and sitting down to the table. You know, my boss, this is one of my favorite quotes that my boss always says, and she borrowed this from one of her favorite quotes, but it's, if the table isn't big enough, then bring more chairs. And if it still isn't big enough, then you should consider getting rid of the table. And if it still don't have enough room, then maybe you need to change the venue. And so we need to both have an understanding that there's a lot of education that is not out there and a lot of information that's out there that we aren't accessing, but also there needs to be proactive conversations happening with people and an understanding that you have to meet people where they are. Not everybody tomorrow is going to decide to march. That does not mean that person deserves equality any less than the person who is in the front of the line with the sign in their hand. And that's one of the things that needs to be also very clear. People are not just marching on Sunday for themselves. They're also marching for the people who voted for Trump. They are marching for the people who do not agree with them. They are marching for equality for everyone, and we cannot decide that someone is more deserving of equality than anyone else.
Amen.
And so, you know, we have to start at that point. Like, we have to start at that point, and we need to open our ears and listen and really understand that everyone's lived experience has value.
So I just wanted to give you guys an update on comments. So the Google comments, you really don't want me to repeat those, because except for all of the arrays of swastikas and CKOs, there's not a
Awesome
to say there.
Great.
But I do have a comment from Rebecca Coakley on Facebook Live.
Oh, Rebecca.
And she says, Jackson says Auntie Angelique is talking about bad Donald Trump.
I'm sending my love, Jackson.
Aww. So Larry, let's bring you into the conversation now.
Sure.
Because men can be feminists too.
And that was my exact question to you, Larry. How can a man be a feminist?
Wow. So I'm answering for all men.
Yep.
Congratulations, Larry.
All the men in the world. Good luck.
I mean, I think the simplest way or the most direct way is to acknowledge, support, and be a visible, vocal proponent for equality, whether it's equal pay, whether it's equal access, equal representation, the leadership, promotion of leadership, development of women and all genders for that matter, and not be afraid to, or intimidated, or, you know, reluctant to actually represent that. You know, it's such a macho belief that men, I mean, we hear it, it's, I don't even know how it's going to be more impacted. Let's, you know, I'm kind of skipping around here, but let's not pretend that Donald Trump is now kind of ushering in this new level of you know, horrible treatment of women and disrespect of gender rights, etc. But you know, he's on the record of saying that, which makes it okay for others. I think we as men, particularly men of color, have to be able to swing the other way and be partners. Sit back and listen, and not be afraid to take orders or ask how we can be best involved. As we all know, there's some of us men that feel like we can't be involved unless we're leading or sitting at the head of the table. Well, we need to get up and make that seat available for people other than just ourselves, and not be intimidated or belittled by asking, how can I help?
Absolutely. Hey man, black men make 77 cents on the dollar, just like the average white woman makes 78 cents on the dollar to the average white man. So we are all in this together.
Absolutely. I mean, what are you talking about? Just the general condition of the neighborhoods we live in. We're talking about access to care. We're talking about employment numbers, unemployment numbers, education, all of it. We can't, black men, black women, one segment of our population can't and shouldn't be the voice or the brunt of it. We have to be able to work through that together. This includes the faith community in your so-called black churches. This includes getting schools on, you know, predominantly minority schools in neighborhoods like the Bronx, like, you know, like East New York here, or Brooklyn in East New York, you know, places like that are most impacted by a lot of these disparities. I mean, we have to be able, we can't just wait for Obama to come back in his new form to save us. We have to kind of pick up the slack, much of which we've been letting go the last few years.
Yeah.
Is black feminism a threat to black men?
No, not at all. I mean, there was a comment earlier about the table. If the table's not big enough, you know, we need to make a bigger table, add more chairs. I use the same analogy with a pie. You know, we're arguing every segment of the population, every box you check, we have issues that we are all fighting for individually, as gender, as race, etc. And we're arguing in some cases over the same slices of pie, regarding funding, regarding policy, regarding just being, you know, in the conversation. But we should be thinking about arguing for the bigger pie instead of just over slices. And we need to make that pie much more, you know, juicier and much more diverse and complete, so that it can fill us all and keep us from starving alone.
Great question. Great answer, rather. So, Larry, do you have questions about feminism?
Do I have questions?
Black or otherwise?
I mean, the questions I had, you guys kind of already answered. You know, the idea of what is black feminism, why is, and this is a question I've received over the last week in just conversations, and it kind of stems from the article I read about kind of the difference, or like the contention between white women's activist groups, and I'm not even sure why we're designated that way, but it's usually these things are divided by race and age. But why? A lot of people are wondering, like, why black feminism? In fact, I think the quote is, this was by a post that one woman from South Carolina wanted to participate in the march, and she read a post and felt unwelcome. because a post written, it advised the white allies in quotes, to listen more and talk less. And it also chided those who it said were only now waking up to racism because of the election, not really, understanding the historical racism and, the challenges that women of color, particularly Black women, have been experiencing. So, I mean, I know you guys have said it before, but especially as we get more people listening in and kind of asking questions, why Black feminism?
I guess for me, why Black feminism? Because I mean, that's what I am, and that's what I pay attention to. This is what's in my face. I mean, I see what the white feminists, I should say, are fighting for, and I see how it will benefit me. I guess what I'm finding right now is that I feel like, where have they been? We've been suffering for quite a while now. And I rarely have, up until this point, have heard white feminists saying, look at how Black women are struggling. They have, health struggles. They have struggles with getting paid equally, because I know they're fighting for equal pay, but you know what? Our pay scale is lower than theirs even. And I don't hear them really shining a light on how there's inequality within the inequality, so to speak. That's part of why I've been so reluctant to claim that feminist titles, because I just wonder, it seems like something that a white person has thought of. And I feel like, where have they been? Why haven't they been helping us all along? Why haven't they been saying something on our behalf all along? I mean, you're talking to white men that a lot of them are married to, these lawmakers and so forth, policymakers, politicians. You're married to these men who make these laws for all of us. Have you been talking to them about how Black people are having a hard time? Maybe, maybe not. But I just feel like they just, like I said, just joined on the bandwagon, or want us to join on the bandwagon to make their voice stronger. But again, I do see what they're fighting for, and I do see how it will definitely benefit Black women and all women, not women of color, period. But to me, I just feel kind of, where have you been?
Right. So question for Angelique, but actually it's for both of you, but we'll start with Angelique's answer. You said earlier and of course there are so many different marches happening that are focused on women's rights, gender equality, etc. Not just in DC. I mean, DC is going to be a logjam of all kinds of stuff. I think it's going to be just terrifying down there, but exciting and terrifying. And of course, there's many different kind of echoing marches around the country. What can get lost in all of the march, all of the press that comes with the crowds and the chants, are the clear, this is what we're focusing on. These are what we would define as measurable gains with our marches, with these marches, with whether it's Friday, Saturday, here in New York City, etc. Now you can answer as Angelique, you can answer as a employee of the Ms. Foundation, or you can just, however you want to answer it, for you both. What would be the top 5 demands that the Black feminist movement in 2017 would see as measurable gain by the end of the year?
And I will caveat this by saying, if there is equality for the most marginalized of us, then all of us therefore are equal. And that is what we should all be striving for. So I don't think this should just be about Black feminism. This should be everyone's agenda. The first thing that really needs to happen is, whatever moves forward, that anything that is not looked at with a gender, class, and race lens, any legislation, any policy that does not have consideration of the impact disparate on race, class, and gender, should immediately be reevaluated. And that is from healthcare to immigration reform to policies on criminal justice. Because that's one of the biggest mistakes that Congress has made, and is one of the biggest mistakes in the past that a number of administrations have made is that they look at things and they look at it on the impact from one angle. And because it doesn't look at the impact that will happen on race and gender, we have exponentially increased the number of women in jail in the last 2 decades. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's untreated sexual abuse that has happened, particularly against women of color, that has actually, the actions that have got them in jail were actually symptoms, because it wasn't looked at from the lenses that needed to happen as to why the behavior was happening.
Mm-hmm.
2, we need to look at healthcare, like, period. Right now, it is the hot button issue. Right now, it seems to be the clickbait that the administration and future administration and our newly sworn in Congress wants to attack. And there isn't a plan. There's one thing to say you want to fix something. There's one thing to say you want to make something better, but you don't have a plan for the repeal. And you can only put out so much rhetoric and so many tweets. And there are real women and communities out there who need health care. Women were being charged differently for services that were essential services under insurance plans before the ACA came out.
Yep.
And that impacts entire families because there are preventable diseases that women were dying from because they could not afford services.
Simple things like a breast exam.
Right.
Or a pap smear.
Right. Thirdly, and this is from my personal perspective, there needs to be a look at the overcriminalization of Black women and girls. There needs to be a focus on the fact that when we put out a report last year with Georgetown Law and Rights for Women and Girls that looked at the higher levels of women and girls who had gone to jail because of symptoms of sexual abuse, and they were going untreated within the criminal justice system. You literally had mothers and daughters who had gone through the same justice facilities suffering from these symptoms because they were overcriminalized, whether it be on the streets or in school, and they were put into the system. There needs to be a look at what does it mean to have paid family leave? What does it mean to have support when we live in a country where both parents have to work? 3-4 decades ago, we lived in a different economic system where both parents may not have had to work. And that's not true for all communities, but it's exponentially increased that there are not parents out there, very few, who have the luxury of only having one parent working. And to risk losing your job because you're sick or your child is sick or because your parent is sick.
Obnoxious, completely obnoxious.
Or to have to go back to work a week after you've had a child is both unhealthy for the people around you and for you and for your child. And there needs to be a look at the education system. A lot of people and a lot of rhetoric that's been put out is the fact that people need jobs. In fact, there are a number of jobs in the United States, but there's a skills gap of people who are either in the wrong place for those jobs or not trained for those jobs. And there needs to be an opportunity for us to look at what does education mean. I was literally listening to my news brief this morning that was talking about how there is a shift in how people are learning and the continuous changing in skills that people have to have because our economy is moving and has moved out of an industrial economy. We just have. And industry jobs may not ever come back.
Okay, so we have another question. Well, actually, an actual question from Rebecca now. I don't know if you guys have read it yet. I posted it in the chat part of our video. The Miss Foundation is exceptional of advocating for feminism that is inclusive of all women, of women of all disabilities. What advice does Angelique have for the broader feminist movement on how to not screw it up?
So first, I would clone Rebecca Coakley, and I would make sure they all had a Rebecca Coakley in their life, because has stopped me from screwing up many, many, many times.
Me too.
I think the first thing people have to be is in a position of learning, and they have to realize that sometimes they're going to be wrong, and sometimes they have to take a step back, because they're not wrong because they did something wrong. They don't have that lived experience. They've never had to think about certain things, and being able to broaden your circles and bring amazing women and men under the tent who have got varied experiences, who are in different areas, who have different expertise, doesn't weaken your ability to make a movement or fight a fight. It makes you stronger. It makes you think about those things that actually help you facilitate true inclusion and what true feminism really means. That's one of the reasons we changed feminism from the social, political, and economic equality of women and men, or men and women, thanks Oxford Dictionary, to all genders, because we wanted to include those who are transgender, those who are gender non-binary, those who are gender non-conforming, those who are gender queer, because how you identify, equality means everyone is equal. And that includes people who are differently abled. And that truly includes those even from the smallest disability to the largest disability. And honestly, no disability is small. Every disability is important. But in particular in the Black community, that starts by acknowledging the fact that they exist.
Mm-hmm.
And stop treating them as a stigma, or stop treating them in a way that that person cannot live a full life if they admit that this is a thing. And that also requires people to have value in their experience and value in what they bring to the table. And to ask questions, and to be open, and to be honest, and just ask questions. Rebecca knows I will ask if I don't know.
Good. Larry, I think we can go to the 5 things we want to, most important things, but there's 3 of us, so what do you say?
We can do 3. We can do as many as you want.
3 important things that we want to say, or 3 important things that we want people to know. Larry, you want to go first?
Sure, why not? I mean, I want to, in connection to this conversation, this topic, I think, well, what I want men to be able to do, to take it upon themselves, whether it's the courage, the will, whatever it takes to join in on the fight for equality for all people. We get caught up, and especially as Black men, we take the brunt of a lot of situations: criminalization, police violence. We're at the bullseye on a lot of these disparities we're talking about. But we are stronger when our partners are stronger. And we have to kind of stand up for each other and not be afraid, not feel threatened or embarrassed to be a part of the feminist movement, whether it's in Jackson, Mississippi, or Reno, Nevada, Chicago, Illinois, or Brooklyn, New York. The fight spans as far as people do, and we should not defer on this one. We need to be on the front lines as well, ready to take orders. That is.
All right. For me,
leave your male egos at home and just bring your male muscles.
There you go. Check your ego at the door. Okay. For me, the most important thing to know right now, I think, is we need boots on the ground and for people to be active. And if you're going to be an activist, you need to be active. You need to do more than write a letter or retweet a tweet or post something on a social media. You need to get active in your community. Use your strengths to help this battle. If it's mentoring the youth, if it's helping with, I don't know, Habitat for Humanity, if it's going out and donating clothes or collecting clothes, whatever it may be that is your strength, lend your talents to the fight. Because to me, I get the marches, I get the protests, I get the letter writing campaigns and the Twitter chats and things. But when it's all said and done, I want to see you get involved and do something like right now, like find something that you can do. It can be something just as small as like attending an NAACP meeting in your area and just see what's going on. Just see what they're talking about. It could be something as simple as going to a school and reading to kids when they invite community members in. Whatever it may be, I want to see people be more active in their community. It's clear that this new administration has no sympathy, has no compassion for people who are disenfranchised. So we have to help ourselves in this situation and get involved in how we can pull together, use the talents and resources that we have on our own to help ourselves out while we're fighting this battle. I'm not saying let go of this battle against the new administration. You absolutely need that too. But there has to be some time where we put ourselves and put some energy into bettering ourselves, getting ourselves in order and doing the things that we need to do to help ourselves along the way. So that's my thought.
And Angelique.
I think one of the things I among the many, but most importantly that I would like people to take away is that this is a movement. It is a movement of movements. And that does not mean that we are all homogenous and that we all have the same ideal of freedom. And, you know, one of my favorite statements that, and I use it as a mantra for me on days, is that my liberation is not yours to define. And neither is your liberation mine to define. Mm-hmm. But if we are working together for equality for all people to have the same power and opportunities, that everyone is equal, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of sexual identity, then we can start off at a clean slate and bring our experience and values to the table. The worst thing we can do over the next 4 years is stay in our silos, because the greatest tool that those that want to take liberty and freedom away from people have is divisiveness. It is to divide us and make us feel like we are in an oppression Olympics and that we are fighting, as Larry said, for pieces of a very small pie instead of us working together trying to buy a kitchen. And so
much better.
Hey man, I'm all about financially backing movements. We buy a kitchen, we get to sell some of them pies.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so my thing that I want to take people away is that you have to be open-minded. You have to realize that at the end of the day, when you take a step forward, understanding that the movement is bigger than we are, but we are the movement, then we can really start progressing together in a space where we are opening our ears, we are listening, we are valuing people's experiences, we are stepping up and stepping back. And we are also understanding that the picture is bigger than what our lived experiences are most of the time. As I said, Black men make 77 cents on the dollar too. But that does not negate the fact that we make 10 cents less than Black men. But if we all made $1,
how about that?
All made $1, it'd be a different situation. And I think that's where we really have to keep our eye on the prize, is how do we get everybody to $1?
So on that note, what a perfect transition. How can people, anyone listening, anyone period, get involved with the Ms. Foundation, get involved with what you guys are doing? And what are you guys doing, by the way?
So the Ms. Foundation is, for all of those who don't know, we are a 43-year-old foundation. We are the first and oldest public women's foundation in the country. What we really do is ensure that women in their communities have financial and capacity building support so that they can build movements. That's a really fancy way for saying we give money so grassroots organizations can keep their doors open, but then after we give that money, we also go in and do capacity building to ensure that they're able to leverage their networks, to ensure they're able to have strong campaigns and they can push forward, to ensure they learn how to cross-organize with organizations that are either in their state or outside their state and learn best practices. And some of our grantees are now 20 years old because we were with them from day one, and our greatest mission is to amplify their voices and to ensure that they build into strong movements so that they can impact their communities with the solutions they already have, right? Most foundations go in and say, this is what we need you to do. The Ms. Foundation started on a listening tour going, what do you need for your community? And so the way to get involved with the Ms. Foundation is go to forwomen.org. That's FORWOMEN.org. Find out more about our over 80 grantees around the country right now. We've had over 1,600 in the last 43 years. We're really excited about that. And really, we want to make sure we can continue giving funds to these organizations. And whether it's $1 or it's $20 or it's you telling folks about the organization or sharing on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, where we are all the time, about what our organizations like the National Latina Institute of Reproductive Health or Black Women's Roundtable, Black Women with a Vision, Black Women's Blueprint are doing around the country. That's how we continue to strengthen movements, by disrupting the dominant narrative and getting voices in the places they really need to be, so that organizations aren't just talking about it, they're actually being able to do the work.
All right. I'm posting that on our Facebook page right now about the Ms. Foundation.
Run by Black feminists, by the way.
Run by Black feminists. Amen.
So I want to first thank Angelique for joining us.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
I think this is hopefully, obviously going through the Google Live, the Facebook Live, there's been, and obviously I want to acknowledge the people who have been watching. We've had several comments and people watching live, but as we know, this goes into perpetuity. So there'll be people watching this for a while. Mm-hmm. And I'm just happy that we can get this information out to everyone, especially, days before all of the amazing protests and interactions that are going to happen. Not just on Inauguration Day and the weekend, but, through the next 4 years and beyond. So thank you for sharing, Angelique.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
And I want to acknowledge both for Kellee and Angela, who weren't able to show up. I know where you live. I'm going to find you. No, they had it,
I'm sure it was good.
But we'll definitely hear from them soon, I'm sure.
Definitely.
However, I'm good. Candace, you close it. This is about you.
Oh, wow. It is? Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. And we pledge to do this once a month, because Larry and I have a blood pact that we're going to do this once a month. So feel free to contact us, on the Facebook page. You can contact Larry on his Facebook page or mine. You can email us at mypointis2@gmail.com. And I think
so actually, you can reach me at Positive Brown with a Z, Positive Brown, either on Twitter or Facebook. And of course, I'm all over Facebook. Twitter and Instagram, and of course my name with a junior, because I am a junior, on Facebook. And Angelique, I don't know, did you say your Twitter, like how people can reach you?
Oh yeah, my Twitter is at Angelique Roche. That's ANGELIQUEROCHE. I'm there all the time.
Candace.
Oh, I am Urban Bushwoman 9 on Twitter, UBW9 on Instagram, and Candace YA Montague on Facebook.
There you go. Well, thank you all for listening, watching, tweeting. Except for those people on the Google Hangouts, you guys can go find something else to do. But everyone else, happy Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.